Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 257 of Optimal Living Advice, the podcast where we take any questions you might have about the many struggles of life and get them answered for you here on the show. I am your host, certified life coach Greg Audino, reminding you before we begin that if you have a question you would like help with on the show, we welcome you to email it to us at advice@oldpodcast.com. And we're going to look today at a question that has come in from a woman who is in uncharted territory, at least for her. As she nears 40 and has always wanted to raise a family, she now has lost interest in doing so. But given her age, this loss of interest is really concerning to her. Does she trust her gut, or does she honor a desire that she held for a long time? Let's see if we can help her out here today. Here's what she's got. At 38 years old, I am a woman who has lost all interest in dating. I have never been married, had a normal amount of relationships, long and short, no awful dating experiences. I always thought it would be nice to have children and used to think about it a lot more. Now I'm running out of time to do that, but I'm still not inspired to date. I'm enjoying my career and my independence more than I used to, but it feels wrong sometimes. Should I keep trying to date and meet someone so I could maybe settle down and not have that regret? Or is it unfair to do that to people if I'm not super excited about it? I want to be honest with myself, but it seems like this phase might really hurt me someday. And there we have it. Good question, asker. Thank you for sending this in. So let's start by talking about phases. Although some phases can yield undesirable results, we'll call them, they're still forms of growth. We go through phases and our identities as we know them become challenged due to any number of circumstances that go against the status quo and cause us to rethink our lives, consciously or subconsciously. We all know that phases are unavoidable as we grow up because we're young, volatile, and are constantly being exposed to things we hadn't been introduced to before. And of course, they're an important part of growing up because we're learning those new things and trying them on for size as we get closer and closer to adulthood. But those phases still happen in adulthood. They tend to occur more sparingly with age, but they still occur. And what I want you and everyone else to know is that none of us are exempt from phases, even if they go against who we thought we were, even if we've tried to avoid them at all costs, even if we've missed opportunities to have them before. To pretend or act as though a phase is not for you by deliberately going against it, it's a very slippery slope. I mean, one could argue that in doing so, you're cheating yourself out of natural growth, good lessons, and an evolving identity. I'd say this is especially true of phases that come with feelings that last a long time, so it's worth it for you to consider how long you've had your feelings of wanting to enjoy being alone. Definitely something important to consider. Now, on the other hand, if we really want to go deep, fighting a phase is probably as natural as a phase itself, because ultimately, whatever behavior your experiences and the belief they've caused you to have cause you to engage in is exactly right and totally natural. I mean, after all, if we didn't avoid certain temptations from the get-go, we would stand to enter many destructive phases, or many more destructive phases, phases that, if entered, would likely cause more pain than pleasure. But in your case, there isn't that sense of danger. Not having children is not the same as overdosing on something that could kill you. And therefore, you're in a position in which there's not a clear sense of right and wrong. Well, maybe you wish there was some certainty, but at least you're safe both ways, so long as you don't attach the wrong meaning to either decision and obsess over that wrong meaning. So anyway, since this isn't life and death for you, I would look first to your enthusiasm. And your enthusiasm seems to be clearly directed towards independence and not starting a family right now. To ignore this right now is to create friction, but it's friction that only exists between your current self and your past self. And sometimes we need to let those past selves go. Growing out of past aspirations is not a betrayal of yourself. It is not something to feel guilty about. You're allowed to not want kids anymore, for whatever reason. If for a while now you found other senses of joy in life, then so be it. Based on how you phrased your question, this seems to be a much more active choice than a reactive one too, which only helps your case to trust where you're at right now. You said you're enjoying your career and independence. That's active. Reactive would be settling for your career and independence. See the difference? You have no horrible dating experiences to have scared you away either. That would be reactive. The only pull seems to be an old promise you made to yourself. But if we didn't ever break promises to ourselves, where would we be? We all would have married our first crushes and missed out on a lot of great/bad decisions in college. We also all would have become astronauts and professional athletes like we wanted to when we were kids. And who really wants to explore space or make millions of dollars? Maybe some people are into that kind of thing. Look, the point for you is that having a family is not the only route towards a happy life. You have realized that. Your instincts are telling you that. Allow your beliefs to catch up to your instincts. It sounds like you've lived your whole life so far with one belief about having children in mind, and therefore one set of actions to match it. If you've been questioning that belief for a while now, then what's the harm in trying something else on for once? Be honest with yourself now, because having a child in this moment and this mindset would be transactional. I'm not saying you definitely would not grow back into your past mentality, adapt, and be very excited about raising a child. Not saying that at all. But you can't make huge, irreversible decisions like that based on potential. You just can't. Now, with all that being said, one last thing I would like to touch upon would be dating itself and how I worry that you might be approaching it. I just want to remind you that even as a 38-year-old woman, dating does not have to come with the objective of child rearing. Dating can be whatever you want it to be, and engaging in it should be done on your own terms. So for what it's worth, dating may be more appealing and enjoyable for you if you release certain expectations of it and instead go about it a little more freely. If you do see dating only as a vehicle to have a child, that might be enough to convince you not to do it right now. But if you approach it more openly with who you are right now and your current excitement about just being independent and focusing on work, you might just reveal a truer part of yourself that will lead you to a partner that you're more compatible with. And maybe that would be a person who would reinvigorate your enthusiasm about starting a family. I'm just saying that's a possibility, not necessarily the goal. Again, we don't want to think too much about potential. So to answer that part of your question, this would not be unfair to anyone either. As long as you are honest about your intentions and where you're at, should that conversation be initiated, you're doing what you need to do for the both of you and being fair to yourself. Asker, thanks a lot for sending this in and asking a question that I would hope sparked a lot of good introspection for those who are feeling less likely to have children someday in spite of their old hopes about doing so. From my personal experience, I've never regretted following a really pressing urge that was following me around for a while. Does it always work? Ideally, no. But it does assure that we are always being true to ourselves and doing the best we can in each moment. And that is an especially graceful sentiment if we're willing to learn along the way, which I would hope we are. Time to wrap up, though. Thanks for being here, friends, and have a great rest of your day. Hope you'll stop in for the next one.